Welcome to Circle City Conversations, where the heart of Indianapolis comes alive through the stories of its people. Join us as we explore our city, one insightful conversation at a time.
Thanks, everyone, for joining me. I'm Alex Lamontes, the host of the podcast Circle City Conversations. You like that?
That's a very neat name.
So I am here with my friend, Faith Alvarez of Alvarez Legal. Faith is a trial lawyer who loves fighting injustice like me, and more importantly, helping people. Specifically, Faith is very passionate about fighting for the rights and interests of women and children.
Women and children, that's what I do.
Yeah. So let's just get right into it. What made you want to become a lawyer?
A lot of things. I didn't grow up with any lawyers in the family. I didn't have it wasn't like my dad was a lawyer and his dad was a lawyer. And obviously my trust fund said I had to go to law school. No, my dad's a small town preacher.
Really?
Law school was never in my plan. I did the long route to college. My undergrad is business. So I have a business degree. I was working for a title company. I loved real estate. Honestly, I did a lot of, real estate transactions. And then a funny thing happened in real estate in about 2007. It stopped being a great place to be.
Oh, no. What happened?
The housing bubble burst, of course.
Goodness.
Silly. So I was working in title. We were doing mortgage closings. We were seeing some really wacky mortgages come through. That was when we were doing those subprime mortgages, the piggyback loans, the really predatory lender stuff. And we would see some really nasty lending stuff come through. But it was great. It was great for business. I mean, I was having fun. I was like 22. I was, the realtors would come in after work. They'd be like, Jello shots. And we would just having real estate was the place to be at that time until it wasn't. And then I remember very vividly being in a closing, working on somebody's buying a house, right? And my manager came and pulled me out of the closing room, which is really weird. That never happened. And it was a Countrywide loan. And she said, you have to stop the closing. This is not going to go through. And I was like, what are you talking about? She says, their checks aren't going through.
Oh, no.
So I was actually dealing with the housing bubble bursting in real time. So I went from doing 10 or 12 mortgage closings a day to now all of a sudden I'm doing 1, 2. And of those 1 and 2, there was a big question was, is their check gonna clear? Because we used to do mortgages by check.
Oh, wow.
So the title company would take just these big old checks for the houses and then we'd deposit it the next day. I mean, it wasn't a big deal because they were always good until they weren't.
Oh, no.
And then we had to do a wire transfer. The attorneys got involved. So then we had to call the attorneys to see, is this a good mortgage? And then foreclosure started taking over. It was a lot. And they reduced our hours. And my husband at the time, he was out of work for 18 months. And it was just really not a great time to be in real estate at that time. So what did I do? I went to law school.
Like everyone else, right?
So I kind of, I had started my own business. In the meantime, I was Alvarez Notary and Signing Services. And in my off hours, I would do mortgage closing because I was individually licensed to do that. I would do those on people's kitchen tables. I would do those, I would go to their place of employment. We'd do it on their lunch break. I was the mobile. The banks would pay me directly through my business. I could do it in English and Spanish. I was very in demand. People that had jobs during the recession didn't want to lose them. So in off hours, title closer was very helpful.
Really?
Yeah. So I was actually doing really good in the recession. One of the people that contracted with me, incidentally, were lawyers. Lawyers would call me and hire me to go and get signatures from people. And I started working with this law firm. And I would go do my title closings. People would inevitably have legal issues. Yeah. And then I'd bring them back to the firm so they could do the case. And we had this really nice relationship. I started doing more legal work for them. I liked it until the point where I was like, I could probably do this, honestly. It's not that hard. So I got a book from the library on taking the LSAT and I studied at my kitchen table at night. I took the LSAT. I was 7 months pregnant actually, when I took the LSAT. I took it
Wow.
at Notre Dame Law School. I went to Notre Dame Law School and I took the LSAT at 7 months pregnant. And those Notre Dame students who are all, I was older, and they looked at me kind of like funny. And they're like, do you need something? It was very awkward because here I am very pregnant and older than them.
Yeah.
And I said, I need a test. And I took it. And obviously it worked out fine. So I went to law school, which was a big risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a big risk because I don't have I have lawyers that I had worked with.
Yeah.
And I was in Elkhart, Indiana, right? So Elkhart,
yeah.
By way of background, when I say it was a bad time to be in real estate, Elkhart, Indiana was the most affected place in the entire country by the recession. President Obama went there twice to my city.
Really?
Yes.
That's how bad it was.
It was, our unemployment rate was through the roof. And people were losing their homes left and right. It was really nasty stuff. And so we were just trying to stay afloat, which is how I started my business, which is how I met these lawyers, which is how I ended up in law school. They wrote me the most beautiful letters of recommendation, incidentally. These attorneys who I didn't know really. Yeah. But they knew my work product and they thought that law school was a great idea for me, which gave me confidence to go. So I showed up to law school not knowing anything.
You were a mom then, right?
I was a mom. I had a 1 and 2 year old.
Oh my goodness.
Why not?
Why not?
It was the recession.
It was as if law school is not.
I mean, the world was ending.
Right.
I mean, the world's continued to experience things that have made it end.
Yeah.
But that was the world is ending of that era. But yeah, I went to Valparaiso Law School. May she rest in peace. She didn't survive.
She didn't make it.
That's a whole podcast in itself. But yeah, I went with my 1 and 2 year old. They had a little daycare at the law school.
Oh, really?
So my kids went to daycare. They went to preschool all 3 years. It was really nice. There was actually a group of parents in law school. We were called the PALs. It was like parents attending law school. Very original name. But I made a lot of great friends in law school. I loved it. I absolutely loved law school. A lot of people will tell you it's a horrible experience. It's so competitive and they work you to death. I don't know. Honestly, I really liked it. Yeah. Did you have that?
Yeah. I mean, I had a similar experience. I tried to enjoy it as much as I could, when joining a lot of clubs, doing stuff like that, and I also had a good group of friends here already from Hanover College.
Okay.
So I had a great base to work with. And I got into my number one choice law school, which was IU McKinney downtown. So
that's great.
Yeah. So you graduate from Valpo. Your first job in the legal arena is...
Yeah. So I was a law clerk. I was a federal law clerk, which I don't know if there's any lawyers listening, but they might appreciate that's not an easy feat. It's a very competitive position to get. But the thing is, when I went to law school, I was actually pretty good. And I got my grades back and I was like, well, gosh darn it. I'm up here in the top of the class.
Yeah.
This is pretty.
That's awesome.
This was a pretty good risk that I took. Yeah. So I got all 3 years I was working in the court. I met a judge. This is what it was. So when I got inducted into the honors program, they had a little banquet and I met a judge, a federal judge that worked in Hammond, in the Hammond courthouse. And he was like, yeah, I need a clerk. Do you want to be my clerk? And I was like, yes. You don't say no to a federal judge, right? Right. So I went and I did that for the summer. The law school gave me a stipend because how great is that we have a student in federal court? I didn't understand what that meant until later. Right. But I liked it. I thought, oh, it's very fancy here.
Yeah. Beautiful courthouse.
Oh, beautiful courthouse. You got marble, limestone. You have that beautiful glass sculpture in the middle. Yeah. Oh, I liked working there. Everything felt so very high court.
Right.
I didn't understand state court yet, but I didn't need to. So then after that, another judge called him up and he's like, hey, I need a law clerk too. So then I went and I worked in the courthouse in South Bend for Judge Nectarline, he's a retired magistrate now, but he took me from Hammond to South Bend. And then I did my second year. I worked over there. And then the judges, they all talk and they liked me. I'm nice. I produce good work. I'm older than my classmates, which I thought was a benefit.
I think it's an advantage.
Yes, because I already understand a little bit more how the world works.
Right.
So then I went to work for Judge DiGiulio for my third year of law school. Well, in your third year of law school, you have to decide what you're going to do next. And so I went to my law school's career services. I'm going to try not to talk bad about them. And I said, I really like working in federal court. I want to do this out of law school. And they said, I think you should apply elsewhere. They said, I don't think you're going to make it. I don't think you're going to get that. It's really competitive. Like you're going to be competing with people from Harvard.
Right. Well, and for our listeners, it's those smaller courts, they're not as many judges, right? Like the Hammond Division, South Bend, as, for example, here in Indy, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's less judges, which means less job opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But we do have one thing to our advantage for us local people, for us regional gals like me. We pay less.
Right.
Right. So these Harvard guys, they want to go New York, California. They want to go Chicago, the higher pay scales. Indianapolis, it's
right.
It's a different step on the scale. But yeah, so I was like, well, I disagree. But that's being a lawyer.
Right.
We disagree.
Right.
So she thought I couldn't make it. I disagreed. And so I applied anyway. I applied to 37 just to be sure. I'm thorough.
What is that? Oh.
I applied to 37 just different judges.
Oh, wow.
To be thorough.
Yeah. Be thorough.
That's how I am. I'm very thorough.
Yeah.
I got 3 offers. And
wow.
I took one.
Did you take that into her office and you say, here are my 3 offers?
No, but I will tell you what happened. I stopped talking to them.
Yeah.
I will tell you what happened though. After I got that clerkship, she called me and asked to put me on the bulletin or whatever, the advertisement.
Now they love you. Oh my
I took
gosh.
a pass on that.
Yeah, I bet.
She couldn't believe it. But this is great advertising for you. And I'm like,
first of all, you're a federal clerk. It's like, what advertising?
I don't care.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so I did stick it to the man.
Yeah.
That told me I couldn't.
And then you started working for the man.
And then I started working for the man. Obviously, that was the next step. But no, I love federal court. That clerkship. It was a 2-year clerkship as an actual attorney, right? I'm no longer a law student. I'm actually working as an attorney. I am the judge's lawyer. I am writing, I am researching the laws to make the orders of the court. I am drafting these things. It is like, I mean, for a nerd like me, it's like a dream come true.
Yeah. It's
all writing. It's all research. It's all intellectual. And you're surrounded by other people, right? You're surrounded by judges and you're surrounded by other law clerks. And these are all, there was Harvard people,
like-minded people, like you nerds smart. Like you, right? Yeah. Smart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you could have like these really weird arguments with people, but they weren't offensive. Like arguing with people was like a way to get smarter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I argued with the judge, and sometimes, we would go to a hearing and we'd come back and we'd argue. Well, I think it should go this way. Well, I think it should go this way. Well, why do you think that? And we'd argue out how a case might end up. And I will say those were some of the best arguments I've ever had in my life because they're coming from a neutral place.
Right.
Where the goal is actually to be correct on the law.
Yes.
Rather than for one party to win. Because now as lawyers, obviously, we want our clients to win. Right. But when we were having arguments from a neutral position, it was just a whole different experience.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So clerkship was great.
And you did that. You had 3 job offers. You accepted one where?
In Indianapolis. Okay. So that's how I moved because I was in the northern part of the state. I grew up on the Indiana side of Chicago. I went and I stayed in that area. I ended up in Elkhart, I went to Bethel College, which is in Indianapolis, or in Mishawaka. So I lived in that area for a long time. And then, so then I got the contract here. I moved to Indianapolis and I like it. Yeah.
Been here ever since?
I've been here ever since.
So you did your clerkship for how long?
2 years.
What about after that? What'd you do?
Because
that's when I first met you. You were in your clerkship.
Yeah, we met through the
Latino
bar.
Affairs Committee.
Yeah. That was a great committee.
It was.
We had a fun group.
Yeah.
Who? It was you, me,
Vanessa was on there.
Vanessa was a chair.
Yeah. I think.
Did you ever chair that committee?
I don't think so. Okay. Esperanza was there maybe.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Maybe for a little bit.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people I met through that section. That was a great section.
It really was.
Yeah. And now it's different. Now everyone's moved to Indy Bar.
It is. Yeah.
So
They do a lot of stuff. Yeah.
We went to state to local, but local made us a full blown section.
Right.
And you can't fight.
Division. Yeah.
Or yeah.
Yeah. Division of the Indy Bar. Yeah.
I mean, you can't fight that.
No.
You go with it.
Yeah. All right. You do your clerkship. What's next?
So I do my clerkship. Again, like in federal court, you see the U.S. attorneys like gliding in the court very elegantly, and you think, oh, I'd like that. And I did think I wanted that until they had a women's leadership program. And so I went through the U.S. attorney's program with the intent to ultimately join their office. And they said, well, first you need prosecution experience. And so I glided into the Marion County prosecutor's office, who takes new attorneys.
I didn't know this.
I did. So I was in special victims, doing mostly like domestic violence and sexual assault. And it was not a happy place.
No, I was a DV public defender in domestic violence court.
It's actually they're really sad.
And they are.
Because no one wins. Even if you get a conviction, it's still a loss.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't want to talk about those cases. But it wasn't a good fit, is what I learned.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy being in criminal law. And so the U.S. Attorney's office didn't look as great to me. So a friend of mine from law school, actually, who lived in I told her she was my only friend. I said, I moved to Indianapolis. I don't know anyone here. You're my only friend, because we went to law school together. And her name was Jennifer Lee. And so when I wanted to leave the prosecutor's office, I was like, I don't know, but I just need to get back in federal court. I hated state court. It felt so icky.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to get back in federal court. She's like, you need to talk to my dad. And her dad owned a law firm. So he needed someone to take care of all his federal litigation. And I was like, oh, thank you. So it was a great match. So I went over there. I had my friend. She's the boss's daughter. I'm like in like this really cool position. Like I'm doing federal court work. Like I loved working there. I loved my time there. All federal cases. That's where I started to learn how to be in the news. I started to learn how to be a plaintiff's lawyer. Yeah. That was fun. I got such an education over there. I was there for 6 years. 6 years working for the firm, doing predominantly federal litigation. I did appeals too, because it was all right.
You did a lot of different stuff. So like me, for example, car crashes, truck accidents, we're very focused. And I just heard you say too much. You did a lot. Like if it was a federal case, doesn't matter if it was qui tam or That's
part of why I left. Part of why I left is it was too much. Yeah. It was, I was stretched too thin and I was frustrated. Yeah. And they were cases I didn't know how to do. And it was beyond my skill set. And I accepted that. And I said, I'm going to take a step away. And I hope that you can find someone to do the work that you need done.
Good for you to realize that it's beyond what you wanted to do and what you could do and walk away.
Realistically. Yeah. So what I did is, I left and I started my own thing, doing the cases that I felt comfortable doing, that I knew how to do, and that I could get good results. So what I do and what I used to do over there is I do civil rights cases. So those give me federal jurisdiction. Right. Because civil rights are discrimination cases, basically. So I do employment discrimination, and then I do police misconduct cases. Cool. So I took a police misconduct case up to the U.S. Supreme Court, mind you. Wow. So I did that. That was when did I get admitted to the U.S. Supreme Court? I think 2001. Yeah. Was that with election year?
2001. I think it was. Yes, I think it was an election year.
This is why I asked, because like I'm whispering. This is the really weird thing that happened. So it was a police death case. Mm-hmm. I won it in the trial court. The city appealed, took it to the 7th Circuit. They reversed, but they created a new law to let the city win. Unqualified immunity. They expanded qualified immunity on my case. But let me tell you what judge was on the 7th Circuit. Amy Coney Barrett. Okay, this is when she was on the 7th Circuit. While I'm writing the petition to the Supreme Court, she gets elevated
to the
Supreme Court. So I'm going to have the same judge.
You haven't gone up
there. The same judge that reversed me on appeal is going to now be.
Oh my gosh.
On the highest court
Do you? So
That's why I was whispering.
So I doubt Amy Comey Barrett's listening to the podcast. She might be watching your live stream though.
I mean, it's factually true. It's factually accurate. You can check the record.
Yeah.
I'm not saying any lies, but it was so surreal because that was the reason it was an election year. And I remember I got a call from who I think it was Kamala Harris who visited Indiana, and her team called and wanted to see if I could give them a copy of my lawsuit. And I was like, I feel really, really weird right now.
Right.
Because my case was where it's how is she going to rule on police brutality? Right. We have George Floyd stuff happening. I got to talk to George Floyd lawyers on that one too.
You did?
That case was just, what a weird time. It was I had an I can't breathe case.
Okay.
And that's what I was taking up, was a positional asphyxiation case. Yeah. She recused herself. They didn't accept cert.
No.
But I got admitted to the U.S. Supreme Court.
You did.
And I can say I've written there.
Qualified immunity.
Ugh.
If you had to explain that to a dummy like me that doesn't know what it means, how would you do it?
I'd say, sure, they violated your constitutional rights, but we're going to let it happen.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
Yeah, no, it's, I think I've explained it. Ding.
Yeah, very sensitive.
I like these microphones, by the way. They're so shiny and new.
Emmanuel made me order them.
Did you get these just for the podcast?
I did.
I'm very impressed.
It's actually the second set of mics. The first set, Emmanuel was like, these are garbage, Alex. You need something better.
I did not say it.
Well, I accept the rephrasing, but I do like these microphones. They're very, look, I did it again.
They're
so sensitive. That's great. Yeah, look, wait.
I know, right? It picks everything up.
For your ASMR clients, I can take a drink of water right now. But
all right, so we're
qualified immunity.
Yeah.
I've described it, I think, most successfully as a vaccine. And I always like that because it kind of ruffles people's feathers. Huh. But yeah, I say, the cops are vaccinated against constitutional violations.
Wow.
It's qualified immunity.
I love that analogy.
It's a vaccine.
Yeah.
The funny thing about that, and why I just kind of get a lot of amusement out of that, is because oftentimes the people who really support the police officers are very against vaccines. And so I think that kind of intertwining of those two things just really ruffles people's feathers. And I find that so amusing. It's for my own entertainment.
Oh my goodness. So you handle a lot of those cases now, right?
Yes.
Yes. And then when we were having lunch a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was probably more than a few weeks ago. But anyways, when we were having lunch.
That was Friday.
And was it Friday?
It was last Friday.
Oh, well, I have 4 kids and they're all under 10.
I mean, I do too.
Yeah, you're right. But you see, look, you were a federal court clerk. I was a public defender. So
okay, no.
Yeah, you came organized.
Fair.
Yeah. You know that your lawyer is a ex-federal court clerk if they show up to a podcast interview with an outline.
I'm thorough, Alex. I've said it before.
But when we were having lunch, you mentioned something. I was like, this is so wild. I never even thought about this as being an area of law, but pregnancy kind of discrimination. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Let's talk about it.
Let's do it.
I actually recently have made this, it's kind of an opening statement, right? And I say, in light of the court reversing Roe versus Wade, people rely on women legally to replenish the workforce. That is our job. We are required to replenish the workforce with children, and we are required to contribute to the workforce. And so it is more important now, more than ever, to protect pregnant women at work, because we are the workforce and we create the workforce.
I love that. That is what I like to call judo law. You take what they've done and use their force and their strength against them.
Yeah. We
Judo.
Don't have options.
Love it.
Yeah. We don't have options. If we get pregnant, obviously, and we're employed, we may not have an option whether to keep the pregnancy, but we definitely have an option to work.
Right. So specifically when it comes to the pregnancy cases, what are some of the kind of factual situations and problems that they face?
Okay. Well, first I'm going to read you off my outline. So the federal law that we trigger through Title VII, which is the employment discrimination and pregnancy discrimination stuff, is employment. Like, I want to make clear, like, I'm talking about, I take wrongful termination cases. So the law that I'm relying on is prohibiting discrimination in employment, quote, on the basis of pregnancy, childbirth, or other related medical conditions. So it's more than just pregnancy. I've not had any cases that are like childbirth related, but it's hard to separate them because they're all kind of connected. But I want to make clear that the law is bigger than just pregnancy. It's the whole shebang. And then the Seventh Circuit explained that the purpose of this law is to remedy the stereotype that, quote, women are less desirable employees because they are liable to become pregnant. And that is what the Seventh Circuit says the purpose of this law is.
Wow. Do you have people come to you and they're like, I got fired because I got pregnant? I mean,
I do, Alex.
You do?
I've got people, women got fired for getting morning sickness too frequently.
What?
I had one woman, so going back to childbirth and related conditions, one woman got fired for breastfeeding.
I figured that would be a big one because, people get very worked up about that.
Yeah.
That's almost been one of those like politicized things, breastfeeding. And it's like, well, hey, guys, we all did it and you have to do it.
It's kind of a natural thing.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was when we were at the doctor or at the hospital after the babies were born, every one of the doctors, they always said that's like gold for babies. Like you would much rather give them breast milk. They get way more nutrients and everything out of that versus formula.
Right.
Yeah.
But the formula lawsuits, Alex, it's job security.
Right. You're right.
But yeah, no, it's kind of frustrating.
Right.
Would be my word as a woman who's had 4 kids. So I've done a lot of TikTok videos on this too. I talk about pregnancy discrimination a lot because there's not a lot of people who, I think, again, as a woman who's an attorney, as a mother who's an attorney, I'm really in a great position to understand these situations because I've gone through a lot of them myself.
Right.
Right. So there's a variety of motives for why employers will fire a woman. But statistically, it's a bad financial idea because women, mothers in particularly, statistically make up the best workers. They're the most motivated to provide everything that their children need, to advance, to show their children good role models. Mothers are very stable workers and very loyal, and generally, they make up a very important part of the workforce. And I don't think that a lot of employers, under or recognize this.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to say that these pregnancy discrimination cases affect companies with 15 or more employees.
Okay.
Because I think, right. So what if we have so here's my law firm, right? I have like one person and like, I can't afford to pay maternity leave, at least not at this point in my business.
So that's why there's a cap
so that's why this is going to 15 or more.
Okay.
Because for me, it's legitimately an economic issue.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just starting out and I can't do it. I will say that maternity leave doesn't have to be paid. I've done all mine unpaid.
Yeah. There's no federal law that requires it to be paid.
Nope.
No. Unless it's
state law, maybe
in writing.
Not here.
Not in Indiana.
Not
surprise,
here.
Surprise.
Shocker.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no requirement for it to be paid maternity leave. You just can't fire somebody. And this is a lot of times what happens for women. So even though, you might have one person, one of the most common non-discriminatory reasons why women get fired when they're pregnant is absenteeism and insubordination. You're missing too much work and you're not doing what I said. You're over there puking. You're not wearing the uniform you're supposed to. Well, it's because I don't fit it. There's a lot of insubordination issues and absenteeism issues. So those are the pretext for a lot of employers for why they fire the pregnant women. But a lot of times they'll wait until you're ready to come back from maternity leave. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, about that job. We replaced you while you were out and we don't need you anymore. This is a lot of times how it happens. And then And now this woman who's been produced another human being and had to recover from that in a short amount of time, is ready to come back to gainful employment so she can then financially support said child, and is out of a job and now has to find new employment with an infant. And how many weeks can she pay for daycare?
Yeah, while she goes on
interviews, right? So it's really important. This law is really important because what I can do in these pregnancy discrimination lawsuits is I can collect your back wages.
Oh, okay.
So I can, because this happens, right? So then you're out of maternity leave, and sometimes for these women, you have to get arrange for daycare. You have a spouse, you have all kinds of other issues. You have other children a lot of times.
Yeah.
And so it's very challenging to go out there and get a new job. It's not as easy when you're coming back because you're juggling so many things. And so some of these women will be out of work 6 months. I had one was 18 months almost. And so what we do is in the lawsuit is we ask for back wages, say, because you discriminated against this woman, now you have to pay her wages because that was unlawful.
Yeah.
And so we get, that amount. The higher your hourly wages, the better.
Oh, of
because
course.
then you can get more money. But
yeah.
Those checks. And then when you get that check in, oh gosh, it feels so validating.
Right. I want to switch gears a little bit. You mentioned TikTok.
Yeah.
So, you just started your own firm, your own practice.
Yeah.
Okay. I really admire how you do your marketing. I think you do a fantastic job of sending your message. This is the message I want to send. What piece of advice would you give to a young lawyer or even a lawyer with a lot of experience that's I'm going to go out, hang out my shingle, but I got to go get cases? And a lot of people use social media what advice would you give to them?
Okay, well, now I'm going to have to tell you my secret.
You don't have to tell the secret.
I'm
Just the tip of the iceberg.
Alex, just take the secret. I'm going to give it to you for free for your podcast listeners. I don't do it for marketing.
You don't? Really?
I do it because I'm weird. I say the way, how do I come up with so many ideas? Or how do I come up with such, goofy things that I do? I do weird filters and I do whatever. I don't know. I come up with silly ideas. When I was a kid, oh my God, if YouTube was around when I was a kid, that'd be really cool. Probably be a millionaire. But me, my brother, my cousins, we all made these. We had those giant, remember those giant VHS tape?
We have one. I swear we have one. It's around here somewhere.
I'm tearing up. We used to make the weirdest videos. We'd spoof video games. We were very into PC games, which were the original.
Oh yeah.
You got to go into MS-DOS, right? But no, yeah. I did all
Wing
the
Commander or something.
We liked all the LucasArts games.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that was Tomb Raider before she got weirdly sexy.
Yeah.
That was when she was still
like a normal woman, looked like
where she was a cylinder, but okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, so it was, so we did a lot of video games, spoofs. We make our own videos.
Do you have those? You need to try to find them if you can.
No, Alex.
And put them on your TikTok.
I can't, alas. I'm sure my mother has them. But we made our own stuff. We used to record ourselves. We call it the kid in the TV.
Oh my God.
And we'd record ourselves and then play the VHS tape. And then we'd record ourselves talking to ourselves on the VHS tape. We did all kinds of really, really cool camera tricks.
That's great.
And that's why I did it. During COVID, my daughter got on TikTok and she was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And so I did it kind of engage with my kids. And then I had an intern. That's what it was. I had an intern and it was COVID and the courts were closed. Mm-hmm. Nothing was going on. And so we did a couple. Oh God, I don't even want to look at my first ones because they were really cringy, but not a lot of people were on at that time.
Right.
And I ended up just kind of naturally growing to thousands and thousands of people.
Do you agree that that's how you kind of get your message out? like using TikTok?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of times my ideas come just from taking calls.
Right.
Like taking cold calls. People will call in, hey, do I have a case? And sometimes they might not have a case, but I think that's a really good question they just asked me. And then I'll just do a video. And it's more to like, I'm like, oh my gosh, people don't know about this.
Yeah.
People really should be informed. And then I think of something silly and then I make a video.
Yeah.
It's actually not marketing. It's more like, oh God, people aren't informed about this. That's really sad.
It is though. It is marketing. That's what marketing is. What do people want? What do they want to know? What is their question? And if you answer it, then you're top of mind.
But that's not why I do it.
Well, that's not what motivates you, but it's there.
Yes. Okay, I see your point. Yeah. So it is marketing. Right. Because I'll do a video. I did a video on pregnancy discrimination and I got 10 calls.
Yeah.
But that's because I'm informing people that they have a case.
Yes. Yeah.
And I feel good about that because otherwise,
they wouldn't know.
And not only would they not be entitled to their back wages, but these employers would keep doing it.
Yes. Until you or someone like you holds them accountable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's kind of that side of it.
Yeah. Well, we don't really have much time left, but I'm going to make you come back. I will make you come back.
I'll come back. Fine. Twist my arm.
And we can talk a little bit more. But before we leave, if our listeners need to get a hold of you, how would they do that? TikTok, find you on TikTok, Faith Alvarez.
No, so go to my website, faithalvarez.com. So I've got all my contact info's there. Or on TikTok, I'm Alvarez Legal. On Instagram, I'm Alvarez Legal. On Facebook, I'm Alvarez Legal. It's it's really original. But yeah, I'm Alvarez Legal, which is the name of my law firm. And I just did a video. I'm suing the city of Fishers. I just did a video on that yesterday, actually.
Actually, I saw that one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that
was interesting.
Police case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I do something silly in that one?
No. That was pretty spot on for Faith.
Oh, yeah, I did. This is what I said. I said, the police investigated themselves and determined they did nothing wrong. We're all shocked.
Yeah. That's so funny.
But yeah, I don't know.
So they can find you on faithalvarez.com.
Faithalvarez.com.
You speak Spanish.
Sí.
Yes, like I do.
Yeah, my man. That's my name.
And you practice in federal court. And you do cases that frankly, I don't know any other Spanish-speaking lawyers that do what you do.
I don't either. I'd like to meet them if they're around.
Right. No, you're a unicorn. So
that's not fair. No, there's demand, and I wish that I could meet another attorney.
Yeah.
So for all those law students that are listening,
there's a ton of them. I spoke at a panel, HLS panel at the law school. I remember when I was in law school, it was like me, Enrique, and Kaya.
Oh, yeah.
There was three of us, there
wasn't many of us.
Yeah. Yeah. The bonfire a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. I was like, okay, so I was at Kaya's house for the bonfire and there were law students there. And I'm like, so how do you guys feel about federal litigation? Is that something you're interested in? And they're like, huh?
Yeah, they probably set their drink down and walked away. They were like,
we're looking at family law, immigration, criminal law. I'm like, but federal litigation is really cool.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, lady.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Faith. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me and for giving me gifts and ice for my soft tissue injury.
Yes. Well, I'm sure your lawyer will be calling me. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Circle City Conversations podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more future conversations.